universities like Oxford and UCL to give talks at the event, and then also sometimes artists or creative practitioners to also present a project that they've done. And for some reason, that event got a lot of attention on Twitter and lots of other places, and it led to a lot of other opportunities, like curating exhibitions at business AI conferences like CogX, where they decided to put some works by Mike Tyker up on easels, which I always still find a very strange presentation format, because it's like an effort to force this digital art form into this more kind of, I don't know, traditional display format. And then, I've also done a little bit of work with Impakt Festival in the Netherlands, and that was a typical kind of media art festival that you have a lot of in Europe, with various talks, events, art exhibition. And but the projects that are probably most important to me are some of those workshops and events I've been doing with the academic AI research community, like the NeurIPS Creativity Workshop, which I ran for 4 years at the NeurIPS conference, which is a really big academic AI conference. And so I started this workshop, and it's been kind of continued to this day. And we invited paper submissions from creative practitioners and AI researchers, because that's kind of the main community. And as part of that, I also made an art gallery kind of each of the 4 different years. And I did kind of similar projects with computer vision workshops. And this year I did an art gallery with CVPR, which I've just actually came back from. So CVPR is a computer vision conference. And this time they asked me to curate a track on art that was kind of done through an open call format, like I usually operate. But it was like a track alongside demos and papers, so it's probably one of the first instances of these kind of traditional machine learning conferences adding on art as a track. And it was really nice because we had a space also with some physical artworks, which I didn't include the images of this time because this was just last week. But you can go on the website, the cvf-art.com. So CVF stands for Computer and Vision Art Foundation. So you can see the sort of submissions we've been getting from, let's say, my network and the technical community, and I'll mention a couple of them at the end of my talk. And apart from that, I've been working on the Art in AI Festival in Leicester, where we bring cutting-edge artists to display in kind of public places. And of course, like most people involved in digital art these days, I've worked with some galleries like Unit London and also with Feral File to make NFT drops, because if you work in the digital space, that's how you make most of your money these days. I mean, I guess there are cycles, but still it's really kind of opened up, I think, a revenue stream for artists that wasn't really there before. And so normally I sort of begin my talks with this slide, because this marks my entry point into this AI art ecosystem. And this is a work called Daydream by Alex Madvintsov and others that came out of Google in 2015. And to me, this is still one of my, I suppose, more treasured kind of AI systems, because I think the way it works, and hopefully this video will show you. So you have a normal image, and then you have an algorithm that gets excited by certain features, and so you get these kind of crazy shapes and colors that almost come out of nowhere. And this was, I guess, to me in recent years, that was like one of the first instances of an algorithm being creative, and it caught some mainstream attention back in 2015 when it was released. For some reason though, and not too many artists have been working with it, but Daniel Ambrosi is probably one of the artists who have incorporated the tool into his practice. And what I like about Daniel Ambrosi's work is that he sort of works with Deep Dream, but also keeps some of the realistic subject matter of this landscape scene. So the image is not just it's not a demonstration capabilities, but also kind of transferred some of the vision of the scene that Daniel Ambrosi had. And then came something called style transfer from the Bethke lab. I think it's in Tübingen. It's somewhere in Germany, and I was very happy because last week I finally got to meet the first author of this paper, Leon Gattis. And when I began to go to a lot of these AI conferences initially, this was what AI art was defined as, right? So you have this algorithm that takes like an image and changes it into a style of Munch, Monet, or like some other artist. And it was really kind of fascinating for me to go to all these events and see how companies like Google and pretty much every other company I can think of were trying to improve on how they could generate these kind of images in the style of these, let's say, dead artists. And to me, it showed like a key disconnect between how different communities perceived art, and I think something that I've been finding quite fascinating, because of course if you show this to a lot of arts practitioners at the time, they would be kind of horrified that this is kind of the understanding of art, because artists probably want to make a new aesthetic, or they want to comment on something that's happening in society. They don't really want to make copies of Van Gogh, right? So so that was quite interesting. And I guess this is an example of Jean Kogan, one of the, I think, educators in the space, because I was trying to find an artwork that had a vaguely, I think, interesting use case of that technology, and I think the only ways I can think of, if you expand the definition of style transfer to use, Google Maps or other types of styles. And then came the GAN, which I think Greta also mentioned, so generative adversarial networks, when you had two neural networks, one that was generating images, and the other one that was kind of looking at the generated images and seeing which ones were kind of real and which ones were fake, and through this interplay you got like a really kind of high quality of images until diffusion models came along. And this sort of charts the evolution of GANs in terms of quality. So first one came out in like 2014 or so, and they've been kind of developing until 2018ish and a little bit after, when they became quite realistic. And I think Mario Klingemann is one of my favorite sort of practitioners in this space, and he's actually based in Munich, so I hope at some point you will also rope him into one of your events. And so Mario Klingemann has been working with GANs, I think, working with different models, also a variety of found, I think, data sets from Flickr and other spaces like that. And what I like in his work is that it demonstrates some of the kind of failures that were really common in the early iteration of the GANs. So you would have facial features that would be quite misplaced and at odd angles, and also same with limbs. And I think that was certainly, from speaking to a lot of artists, this is something also that they found exciting. And I think even nowadays, when the image generation models are much more perfect, I feel there is still a fascination with hands, because this is an area that even the best text-to-image models still get quite wrong. And also from going to a lot of kind of AI conferences at the time, it was interesting to see the researchers present the GAN models, because frequently they would kind of state some of these issues as problems to solve, right? So there were problems with with generating animals with the right number of legs, or problems with structuring, I don't know, the human body. And I think this whole framing of problems was interesting, because I guess they had the AI researchers were trying to develop models that would be realistic, whereas kind of artists and creators probably want something else from what they are working with. So again, it was a kind of very interesting difference in goals. And yeah, so now I'll walk you through some artists who are, I suppose, trying to do something a little bit more different with these GAN models. So one of the ways to stand out was to control the dataset aspect of these models, because ultimately that's what you train the AI algorithm on, and it has, I think, quite a lot of influence on the final result. And artists like Helena Siren work with their own datasets of photographs, engravings, I don't know, pastel drawings, and I think Helena Siren has a really unique aesthetic in this space, because her works look very much craft-based, and you can see how she combines various, I think, mediums, like on the right you have, I think, newspaper and pastels together. And then you have artists like Anna Ridler, and this is a project that I actually commissioned back in 2018 for Impakt Festival. And Anna Ridler came to the Netherlands during the tulip season, and she made her own dataset of 10,000 tulips. So she bought the tulips, she proceeded to take 10,000 photographs, and then she categorized them, because of course, you know, different kind of stages of a tulip, different type of tulip, and then she proceeded to train an AI, well, a GAN on them to kind of get these beautiful images of flowers. And I think what was really kind of special about the way Anna Ridler worked is that at the time it was, I think, very common for AI art to be kind of displayed on a screen, and people always valued the high quality generations and not so much all the labor that could have gone into the project. And Anna Ridler wanted to kind of highlight the labor that goes into the data set. Well, I mean, in her case, of course, she made the data set, so whenever she was exhibiting the work, there would be the video playing kind of on one side of the wall, and then there'd be another wall that would be dedicated to showing hundreds or 1,000 of these little photographs to showcase the data set, and the labor behind it is really important. And then there are other artists who were kind of looking at kind of maybe innovating more on the technical front, and Ivona Tao made this work called Man Discontinued that reverses the machine learning process, which is, you know, normally about learning or kind of improving as the model kind of goes on, to force forgetting. And yes, you can kind of see it kind of moves almost like backwards in the process, and becomes, yeah, changes color a bit and so on. Another work I really like is this project called Cusp by Jake Elves, which again I think is interesting in terms of display. So Jake trained a GAN on a data set of various birds, and then what is special about this work is that he took this screen and he put it in the Essex marshes, and you can see sort of real birds walking around, and you know, they could be interacting with this fake generated bird. And I think that really kind of makes you think about, what do we do with these kind of digital images and entities that we've developed? How would they fit into our ecosystem? And yeah, then came also this portrait of Edmond Bellamy by the French business school collective Obvious. And yeah, so these business school students were quite smart. They were working with Christie's Auction House, and yeah, as you may know, Christie's is more of a traditional establishment that sells a lot of old high-end art, which is frequently in a golden frame, right? So to make AI art more legitimate, these these students proceeded to make quite a poor image generation of this, I don't know, portrait. So this was definitely not state of the art at the time. But anyway, they did it and they put it in the golden frame, which is important, I think, probably for the auction house. And they signed it with the formula from the GAN algorithm, because in a way kind of to assign authorship to that, because I think at that time certainly headlines that AI has created something were very kind of common. And yeah, this piece of art sold for $432,000 at Christie's, which in 2018 was like a big record and surprise for this field. And yeah, there's also a group of artists who've been kind of working with some of these tools in maybe other kind of mediums. So Ben Snell has made a sculpture, and he trained again on a data set from antiquity to modernity. And what is interesting is that he destroyed the computer that made the generation, and made the sculpture out of it. So I think this is really, again, a really kind of maybe smart way of adding a more conceptual layer to the work, because, as I said, lots of artists use AI on some sort of data set to get some sort of image, and you have to like figure out how to stand out. And I think Ben Snell's work is fantastic because of that, because you have, if you look at the broad history of art, you will have artists in the 20th century who are destroying their work, and this is perhaps quite a nice reference to them. And another artist who I find, I think, quite smart commercially and very interesting in practice is Segwen Chung, a Chinese-Canadian artist now based in the UK. Segwen works with a robot arm, which they have trained on their own kind of drawings, and together with this arm, the artist does performances, and so the artist draws something, and then the hand draws something, and in the end, you often get these sort of like paintings that have been done together by the artists in the system. And so I think, again, it's a great case of sort of like coming up with a fine artwork and a performance type of piece to appeal to a variety of audiences, and also, to have something physical and performative in this space. And nowadays, I think AI art is very much kind of associated with these image generation models, and I think I'm becoming more interested in artists who use facial recognition or other tools to make art. And so this project from 2020 by Maciej Mariański is made by the artist by pitting a curve generator against a facial recognition algorithm. And so using an evolutionary process, the curves become more and more like a face. So if you look at it, you can probably spot a very kind of different depiction of a face. And again, I think this is a very kind of unique way of working with these tools to make a face. And the Korean artists Shung-sung Bak, Kim Young-hung, they have been working with portrait painters who were tasked with creating portraits together with a facial recognition system. And as soon as the facial recognition system detected a face, then they had to stop and do something to the painting to stop it being recognizable as a face. And these are some of the works that the artists have made that are not portraits. And you can see this one here that, to me, it definitely does not look like a portrait. But actually, if you sort of, I think there is a drawing of a face that's been tilted 90 degrees and then sort of like replicated multiple times. And again, I think this is a really kind of good example of a way to use these algorithms deceive maybe some of these AI systems to make a face that they don't recognize. And Tom White has been making various shapes, ink screen prints with teddy bear on one hand and a snail on the other. And so these are kind of the basic sort of like images that if you show to a lot of the image recognition models, they will recognize them as belonging to a particular category. So I think with the teddy bear, it's quite obvious. But if you look at the image of the snail on the other side, I think if I wanted to draw a snail that would look like a snail to everybody in this room, I'd probably draw something completely different. So again, this sort of highlights the difference in our perception and machine perception. And yeah, now I think for the last couple of minutes, I will mention some projects from the more contemporary period, and that I also feel I'm probably a bit less excited about because it feels like it has become too realistic, and also as a curator, it's much more challenging to find interesting work in the space because the field has been flooded with, you know, anybody just making images of the cat and so on. So I'll mention Botto. So this is the child of Mario Klingemann, and I think of it as a project that tries to kind of unite a lot of the trends in some ways, because ultimately Botto is a system that generates images from a kind of a text prompt, but these images are evaluated by a community, like a DAO, from kind of the NFT, blockchain sort of side of things. And so this community then votes which of these images should go on sale. And yeah, I think that makes the whole concept a bit more interesting because it's in a way a decentralized autonomous artist. And yeah, Rupi Ray-Nisto is one of the artists who's been working with the text-to-image tools to sort of also still to highlight some of the errors and mistakes they make. So if you look at this image, you will see that there are random sort of legs floating around in what initially might seem like a perfect photograph. And then I think I will end. What will I end with? Yeah, I always prepare too many slides because I'm not sure of my talking speed. Yeah, so I'll end with two projects from my computer vision gallery, which come more from the science kind of AI side of things, because one of my motivation of doing these galleries at computer vision and AI conferences is to encourage AI researchers to make art or to develop like new systems, because it always feels like they are underappreciated. And yeah, this is kind of one of the, I guess, artists we showed called Jiyu Hu, and he's got a system for multi-view wire art where he's got this cube, as you might have seen, and depending on where you rotate it, you get a view of a different scientist. And then we had these three researchers, Daniel Gang, Inbu Park, and Andrew Owens, who had an optical illusion type of method. So you can see initially it looks like a photo of an old woman, and if you turn it around, then it becomes like a dress. So, I mean, I'm not a regular attendee of these computer vision conferences, but this year I've noticed that optical illusion seems to be like quite a big thing, because there are probably, well, at least 5 different techniques that were submitted to my gallery to kind of, yeah, to look at these optical illusions and themes of pareidolia, where you look at an image and maybe kind of see 2 different interpretations depending on how far away you stand or something like that. Yeah, so I think